He is a beast killing. That's all that he's doing. And now, of course, the famous Lycaon passage. So he will meet Lycaon, and we'll call it Lycaon's Odyssey, because I think that's a good way to think of it. First he met a son of Dardan Priam just escaping the rapids, Lycaon, the very man Achilles seized once on a midnight raid and hauled from his father's orchard, resisting all the way. He was pruning a young fig with his sharp bronze hook, cutting green branches to bend for chariot rails, when a sudden blow came down on him in the dark. The grim marauder Achilles, we're told. So notice, you got your 12 young Trojans who were taken away for sacrifice, and then you've got young Lycaon as well, who is captured. Well, we're told that he is sent to Lemnos, he's sold as a slave, a stranger releases him, he's ransomed, he ends up at a town named Arisbe, and then he escapes back to Troy. He's only been in Troy 12 days now, when all of a sudden he will come again face to face with the same Achilles that captured him before and ransomed him. And then at line 60 or so, we have a soliloquy from Achilles, filled with rage. We're always back to that word of the opening line of the poem. Addressed his own great heart, so we have another one of these soliloquies. By heaven, an awesome miracle, right before my eyes, these gallant, die-hard Trojans, even those I've killed, they all come rising back from the western gloom. By the way, the Romans will love these lines, because they will be like, yeah, you didn't get Aeneas and you shoulda, because Aeneas went on to form the great Roman people, and guess who defeated the Greeks in the end? The Romans, right? Virgil will make a fine point of it. We'll get there when we study the Aeneid, right? All come rising back from the western gloom. Look at this fellow here. Back he comes again, fleeing his fatal day. And then we're told that Lycaon immediately recognizes, crap, how is it possible that I get 12 days now, I've been home, and now I get again against Achilles? We're told at line 73, 74, 75, Lycaon ducks, runs under the hurl, and seizes Achilles' knees as the spear shot past his back, struck in the earth, still starved for human flesh, and begging now. One hand, this again will remind us of Tros in the last, who begged for his life, and Achilles immediately killed him. Here, he's supplicating. He grabs the knees. Instead of grabbing the beard, he grabs Achilles' spear, holding for dear life. Lycaon burst out with a winging prayer. Achilles, he says, I hug your knees. Mercy, spare my life. I am your supplicant. Prince, you must respect me. Yours was the first bread I broke, Demeter's gift. That day you seized me in Priam's well-fenced orchard, hauled me away from my father loved ones, sold me off in holy Lemnos, and I fetched you 100 bulls, and once released I brought 3 times that price. And it's just 12 days that I've been home in Troy. By the way, notice the number 12 keeps coming back, right? We had 12 young men, and of course here 12 days. About 12 days since I've been back in Troy, all I've suffered. We think of Odysseus in his line about suffering, right, in the Odyssey. But now again, some murderous fate has placed me in your hands, your prisoner twice over. Father Zeus must hate me, giving me back to you. And then we find out a little bit later, this Lycaon is actually Polydorus' brother. That is to say, the Polydorus that Achilles killed before, that brought Hector into the front lines for an exchange earlier. And he says it finally one more time. Listen this too. Take it to heart. I beg you, don't kill me. I'm not from the same womb as Hector. Hector who killed your friend, your strong, gentle friend. In almost any time Patroclus is mentioned, it seems that his gentleness or his compassion is a part of what they want to say about him. Now to Achilles, line 110. These are famous lines from the Iliad, as Achilles will now speak to Lycaon, who's on his knees begging for his life. So the illustrious son of Priam begged for life, but only heard a merciless voice in answer. Fool, Achilles says, don't talk to me of ransom. No more speeches. This will sound very much like what he's going to say to Hector here in the next book. Before Patroclus met his day of destiny, true, it warmed my heart a bit to spare some Trojans. Droves I took alive and auctioned off as slaves. But now, not a single Trojan flees his death. Not one the gods hand over to me before your gates. None of all the Trojan sons of Priam, least of all. Come, friend, you must die. Why moan about it so? Even Patroclus died a far, far better man than you. So he mentions the fact, oh, you want to bring up Patroclus? Patroclus died. He was a much better man than you. And look, Achilles says, you see how handsome and powerful I am? Please. The son of a great man, the mother who gave me life, a deathless goddess. But even for me, I tell you, death and the strong force of fate are waiting. There will come a dawn or sunset or high noon when a man will take my life in battle too, flinging a spear perhaps, or, the irony, winging a deadly arrow off his bow. As we say, Paris has been here the whole time since we saw him in book 13, line 913. At that, Lycaon's knees gave way on the spot, his heart too. He let go of the spear. He sank back, spreading both arms wide. Drawing his sharp sword, Achilles struck his collarbone just inside the neck, and the two-edged blade drove home, plunging to the hilt. And down to the ground he sprawled, stretched face first, and dark blood pouring out of him drenched the earth. Achilles grabbed a foot, slung him into the river, washed away downstream as he cried above him savage words to wing him on his way. This is Achilles, who is so concerned about the burial of Patroclus for all of the obvious religious reasons. But notice what he says. There, lie there. Make your bed with the fishes now. They'll dress your wound and lick it clean of blood. So much for your last rites. He'll get no last rites. Nor will your mother lay your corpse on a bier and mourn her darling son. Whirling Scamander will roll you down the sea's broad bosom. And many a fish, leaping up through the waves, breaking the cold ripples, shivering dark, will dart and bolt Lycaon's glistening fat. Die, Trojans, die, till I butcher all the way to sacred Troy, run headlong on, I'll hack you from behind. Nothing can save you now, not even your silver-whirling, mighty-tiding river. Not for all the bulls you've slaughtered to it for years, the rearing stallions drowned alive in its eddies. Die, even so, writhing in death, till all you Trojans pay for Patroclus' blood and the carnage of Achaeans killed by the racing ships when I was out of action. In other words, I'm going to kill every single Trojan I can find because I decided to withdraw from the battle because Briseis was taken from me, and so now I'm going to pay back. I don't think this is about the death of Patroclus. As I said in my review lecture of books 1 through 9, I think this is about Achilles and his crisis of faith. He doesn't anymore know who he is and why he is, and so his immediate response is just start killing, right? Just incredibly killing. Finally, we will have then Achilles versus Xanthus, or Scamander, the river, right? And it begins with Aristophanes. And once he meets this young warrior, so this will be his next kill. We're at line 163 or so. Achilles went for Aristophanes, fresh from the ford, braced to face him there, brandishing 2 spears. And the Xanthus filled the Trojan's heart with courage because we're told that he's related to the river. And the river seething for all the youths Achilles slaughtered, chopped to bits in its tide without a twinge of pity. Closing against each other, just about in range, the magnificent runner Achilles opened up. So Achilles now is going to speak. Who on earth are you? Where did you hail from? You with the gall to go against my onslaught. Pity the ones whose sons stand up to me in war. And Aristophanes will respond by saying, yeah, well, I'm actually related to the river, but let's fight. And at line 180 or so, mincing so, as brilliant Achilles raised his Pelian ash spear, but the fighting Aristophanes, quick, ambidextrous, we're told, hurled both spears at once. Wow. One shaft hit the shield, no breakthrough, the shaft could not smash through, the gold blocked it, forged in the god's gift. But the other grazed Achilles' strong right arm, line 190, and dark blood gushed as the spear shot past his back, stabbing the earth hard, still lusting to sink in flesh. In other words, it will graze Achilles, and it will wound Achilles. But next, Achilles, burning to cut down Aristophanes, hurled his ashen spear. It flew straight as a die, but a clean miss. It stuck the river's high bank. We see this over and over in the Iliad, where the spear sticks in and then it's kind of quivering, and half the length of the lance stuck deep in soil. In other words, the spear goes way into the river bank. So Achilles, drawing the sharp sword at his hip, sprung at the man in rage as he tried, Aristophanes, tried to wrench Pelides' spear from the bank, but his grip failed. In other words, he must not have a sword, and so he's trying to pull the spear out. 3 times he tries to wrench it free, tugging madly, we're told. Thrice gave up the struggle. The 4th, with all his might, he fought to bend Achilles' shaft and break it off. But before it budged, the hero was all over him, slashing out his life, slitting his belly open, a scooping slice at the navel, and all the bowels slipped out onto the ground. It's like the poet wants to make these kills as gruesome as possible. Darkness swirled his eyes as he gasped his breath away. And trampling his chest, Achilles tore his gear off, glorying over him now. Lie there with the dead, punishing work you see to fight the sons of invisible Kronos' son, ever sprung from a river as you are. You claimed your birth from a river's broad stream. Well, I can boast my birth from powerful Zeus himself. Note the irony of this, right? My father's the man who rules the hordes of Myrmidons, Peleus, son of Echius, and Echius sprang from Zeus, as Zeus is stronger than rivers surging out to sea. So, the breed of Zeus is stronger than any streams. Here is a great river flowing past you. Look, what help can he give you? None. Nothing can fight the son of Cronos Zeus. Not even Alcestis, king of rivers, vies with Zeus. Not even the overpowering oceans, huge high tides, the source of all the rivers and all the seas on earth and all springs and all deep wells, all flow from the ocean. But even the ocean shrinks from the mighty Father's bolt when terrible thunder crashes down the skies. So in other words, we will have then this taunt, literally the taunt at the river, right? Well, the river is not going to have any of this, right? And we have then a blur of kills. 7 of the Paeanian men Achilles will kill, and he's just throwing them. Their names are just listed one right after the other, and he will just throw them in. Finally, at line 240, the river's had enough. Stop, Achilles! Greater than any man on earth, greater in outrage too, for the gods themselves are always at your side. But if Zeus allows you to kill off all the Trojans, drive them out of my depths at least. I ask you, out onto the plain, do your butchery there. In other words, the river says, I can't have any more dead bodies in my river. All my lovely rapids are crammed with corpses now. No channel in sight to sweep my currents out to sacred sea. I'm choked with corpses, and still you slaughter. More you blot out. More, leave me alone. Have done, captain of armies. I'm filled with horror. And Achilles will respond by saying, no, I keep killing until I get Hector, right? Until he kills me or I kill him. Then we're told at line 255, down on the Trojan front he swept like something superhuman. So there it is, right, godlike. And now from his deep whirls, the river roared to Apollo. Disgrace, god of the silver bow and born of Zeus. You throw to the winds the will of Cronos' son time and again. Zeus gave you strict commands. Stand by the Trojan ranks and save their lives till the sun goes down at last and darkness shrouds the plowlands ripe with grain. When Achilles heard that, Achilles, the famous spearman, leaping down from the bluff, plunged in the river's heart, and the river charged against him. So we have at line 264, Achilles fighting with the river, churning, spurning, all his rapids rising in white fury, and drove the mass of corpses, choking tight his channel. The ruck Achilles killed, Scamander heaved them up, vomits up all of the corpses, and bellowing like a bull, the river flung them out on the dry land, but saved the living, hiding them down the fresh, clear pools of his thundering, whirling current, but thrashing over Achilles' shoulder, raised a killer wave. So here we go, the tsunami, right? And raised a killer wave. The tremendous thrust of it slammed against his shield, and he staggered, lost his footing, his arms flung out, and we're told now that Achilles begins to fight for his life. And in fact, we're told, sounding very much kind of like Odysseus in Book 5 of Odyssey, when we go there, about to drown. Then Achilles finally will groan and pray at line 307, Father Zeus, to think in all my misery, not one god can bring himself to rescue me from this river. Help, help, I need help. Then I'd face any fate. And no God on high, none is to blame so much as my dear mother, how she lied. Again, notice we're blaming it on a woman, please. She beguiled me. She promised me I'd die beneath the walls of the armored Trojans, cut down in blood by Apollo's winging arrows. It's always Apollo who in the end is going to kill Achilles, even though the mythology will tell us it's Paris. I wish Hector had killed me. The best man bred in Troy, the killer of a hero then, and a hero too, the man whose corpse he stripped. Now look, what a wretched death I'm doomed to suffer, trapped in this monstrous river like some boy. We think about the boys that he pulled out of the river, and of course we think about the boy he just killed, right? Some pig boy swept away, trying to ford a river torn in a storm. quick to his cry, Poseidon and Apollo moved in close, stood at his shoulder now, and taking human form, grasped him hand to hand, spoke bracing words. Poseidon, who shakes the mainland first to say, "Courage, Achilles! Why such fear, such terror? Not with a pair like us to urge you on, gods in arms sent down with Zeus's blessing, I and Pallas Athena. It's not your fate to be swallowed by a river. He'll subside, and soon you'll see for yourself. But we do have sound advice." So now Athena and Poseidon are going to say, "We got some advice for you, if only you will yield. Never rest your hands from the great level or war." We've heard war called this many times in the Iliad. "Not till you pack and cram the Trojans tight in the famous walls of Troy. Whoever flees your onset. But once you've ripped away Prince Hector's life, back to the ships you go. We give you glory. Seize it in your hands." Seize, of course, you're making us think of Horace's famous Carpe Diem, right? We're told with that Achilles will surge on. The two rivers will come together, Scamander, Xanthus, and Cylanus, and they're ready to drown Achilles. And they will in fact say at line 355, "We'll stop this wild man in his tracks, lording it in his power now and raging like some god. Neither his strength nor splendid build can save him, not now, I tell you, nor all that glorious armor. Now, somewhere under our floods, that gear will sink, immersed deep in slime, and I'll roll his body round in sand and gravel, tons of spills of silt. Achaeans will never know where to find his bones, never collect them now. I'll bury that man so deep in mud and rocks, that's where his grave mound will be plied, and then no need in the world to raise his barrow high when comrades come to give him royal rights." So he vaunted, we're told. But Hera, we're told, has fear, struck with fear at line 373, for Achilles screamed out, dreading he might be swept away by the giant churning river, and quickly cried to the god of fire, own dear son, "To arms, my child, god of the crooked legs. You are the one we thought a worthy match for the whirling river Xanthus. Quick, rescue Achilles, explode in a burst of flames," line 380. "I'll drive the west and south winds white with clouds and sweep in from the open seas a tearing gale to sear the Trojan bodies and gear and spread your lethal flames. We're going to have complete destruction on the plain outside of Troy with the fire. And you make for the Xanthus banks and burn the trees, hurl the stream into a conflagration. Not for a moment let him turn you back with his winning words of threats. Never abate your fury till I let loose my shout, then halt your withering fire." So in other words, you're going to have then fire that's just going to go all over the place, just burning up everything. And now we're told at line 403, "The river's strength was burning out, and the river pants the god's name. Hephaestus, stop! Not a single god can stand against you. No, not I. Can't fight such fire, such fury." In other words, fire beats water, right? We got, again, the forces of nature fighting against each other. "Hold your attack, stop. Brilliant Achilles can drive them out of Ilium now. What's this war to me? Why should I help Troy?" And Xanthus then will cry, the river will cry to Hera at line 420 or so, just a few lines before it. "Oh, Hera, why? Why does your son attack me, whip my waters more than all the others? Why? What have I done to you? Nothing beside those other powers, all who rush to defend the Trojan armies. Oh, I'll stop if that's your command. But let your son stop too. I'll swear what's more, never to drive the fatal day away from the Trojans. Not even when all Troy burns in the ramping flames, when the warring sons of Achaea burn her down." I'm sometimes asked by students, why did the poet not include the story of the fall of Troy? And we have to go to the Aeneid, for example, to get that story told by Aeneas and how the Trojan horse and all of that. I think it's because we already know what's coming. The Greek audience knows the fall of Troy is inevitable, far more interested in the way we get kind of set up for it. Hera heard him, we're told. The radiant white-armed goddess quickly cried to the god of fire, own dear son, "Hephaestus, stop! Stop, my glorious blazing boy. It's not right to batter another deathless god, not for the sake of these mortals." Right? And so we're told that everything is done, and Achilles now is allowed to go on and run towards Troy. Meanwhile, we have the gods fighting. This poem now will ridicule itself and the serious action, which I think is an amazing moment in this poem. I wish I could read all of this scene. I can't, but I'll read enough of it to give you a sense of it. I'm at line 440. Right? The powers collided, the gods. A mammoth clash. The wide earth roared, the aching vault of heaven echoed round with trumpets. And Zeus heard the chaos throned on Olympus heights and laughed deep in his own great heart, delighted to see the gods engaged in all-out conflict. They did not waste a moment, closed at once. Ares, stabber of shields, led off, charging Athena, shaking his brazen spear, and dressed the goddess down. So we'll have the exact same thing that's happened again and again and again in the Iliad, now being done by Ares towards the goddess Athena. You, dogfly, why drive the gods to battle once again with the stormy bluster driving your wild heart? Don't you recall the time you drove Diomedes to spear me through? Obviously earlier in the book that gave us, right, the Diomedes Aristeia. In the eyes of all the world, you seized his lance and rammed it home yourself, tearing into my rippling, deathless flesh. So now, I think I'll pay you back for all your outrage. And with that, he stabbed at her battle shield of storm, its dark tassels flaring, packing tremendous force. Not even Zeus's lightning bolt can break its front. Bloody Ares lunged at it now with huge lance, and Athena backed away, her powerful hand hefting a boulder off the plain. So we're now making fun of Hector's boulder in book 12 and Ajax's boulder that wounded Hector in book 14. A boulder off the plain, black, jagged, a ton weight, that men in the old days planted there to mark off plowland. Notice, no comment about men in the old days could lift a boulder like this. No, no, no. That Pallas Athena hurled that boundary stone at Ares, struck his neck, loosed his limbs, down he crashed, and out over 7 acres sprawled the enormous god, and his mane dragged in the dust, his armor clashed around him. It's ridiculous, and it's meant to be ridiculous. I think what's happening here is the poet is kind of making light of the seriousness of the nature of this poem. That is to say, the tragedy becomes comedy in this moment, right? Athena, speaking of comedy, laughed aloud, glorying over him, winging insults. Colossal fool! It never even occurred to you, not even now, when you matched your strength with mine, just how greater I claim to be than you. All right, well, Hera will be mentioned as plotting against Ares, and in the end, Aphrodite has to come and help